What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to SuckerFree Sports Talk, your Chicago sports talk show for everything Bulls, Bears, and more. Got a lot to talk about on today's episode. I will give you my reaction to the Damar Hamlin incident. We'll talk about the Bulls and Zach LaVine playing much better basketball of late. I will give you my top 10 Bulls players of all time. I will also give you my predictions for the first week of NFL playoffs, but first, we have to talk about the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears season officially comes to an end, and I'm going to talk about two different schools of thought here. The first school of thought is the Bears finished one of their worst seasons of all time, finishing 3-14, ended the season on a 10-game losing streak, and like I always say, there is no pride in losing. I know a lot of fans are happy about the Bears losing that final game, but you have to change this culture of losing in Chicago. This is the charter franchise of the NFL. This is the NFL's oldest team. In the 80s and early 90s, this was a Super Bowl team. And even in the early 2000s, 2005, 2006, this was a Super Bowl team. And now look at us. Over the past 10 years, this team has been a complete joke. You had the 1 year under Mr. Trubisky and Matt Nagy where they made it to the first round of the playoffs and lost. But other than that, this team has been a joke. You don't see teams like Green Bay and Kansas City in this position where they're picking first overall. This has been a joke of a year. Bears, their worst season of all time, 10-game losing streak. That's a Bears record for games lost in a row. It has been an absolute embarrassment. It's been hard to watch. Worst defense I've ever seen on a Bears team, and I've seen some bad ones. But the second school of thought here, the Bears and Ryan Poles did exactly what they told you they were going to do. They cleared out all the bad cap space left over from Ryan Pace. They traded Khalil Mack. They traded Roquan Smith. Now, I don't know about the compensation they got for those two players, but they did exactly what they told you to do. Told you they were going to do. This was not going to be a winning season for the Bears. Everybody knew it. Ryan Poles knew it, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. And they did some good things this year. They identified their QB of the future. Justin Fields proved that even though he is best at running, he is also a pretty good passer in the NFL. Is there work to be done there? Yes. But at the same time, he made strides. Week to week, I saw the strides. I saw the toughness in this guy. This guy is willing to do the work in the offseason to be great. He wants to be great, and I saw enough strides in him where I believe he is the QB of the future for the Chicago Bears. And then we all saw it last week. The Houston Texans won their game, and the Bears lost their game. The Bears moved into that number 1 overall pick. Operation Lovie Smith was a success. If you watched that game, Houston versus Indianapolis, I don't know what the Colts were doing there. It looked like they were trying to lose that game, and I think Houston's management probably wanted Lovie Smith to do the same. But they won that game, and the Bears take over that number 1 overall pick. Now, teams like Houston, Indianapolis, other teams like Las Vegas, they will do anything to move them to that number 1 pick. And we'll see what happens here, but the Bears should be able to trade out of there and get multiple first-round picks, multiple second-round picks for that number 1 overall pick. This is unprecedented. We saw it a few years ago. The 49ers gave up a lot to move up into that number 2 pick. This is the number 1 overall pick. So we're going to see what happens here. But the Bears hold the key in this draft. But this is a key here for the Bears. This is one of the keys for this Bears team. Do not miss out on your guy by trading back. If you like Will Anderson that much, which I do, this guy is a phenomenal football player. I think in 5 years, this guy will be one of the top edge rushers in the league. People want to complain about his size a little bit, say he's a little too small, kind of reminds him of Leonard Floyd. It doesn't matter. This guy is super strong. He wins his one-on-one matchups more times than not. I really like this guy, but you cannot miss out on your guy if you're the Bears by trading back. You know, we'll see what happens if they move back to that 6, 7, 8 spot. You might pick up a guy like Javon Carter or Miles Murphy, who I like a lot. But if you really like Will Anderson, you can't lose out on that guy. And there's going to be teams like the Indianapolis Colts. Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, said it the other day. He has to do whatever he can to find their QB of the future. So you're going to have your pick of teams here that are going to try to move up. Bears just got to be patient. Ryan Poles has to be patient. You know, wait for the pro days to happen. Wait for the combine to happen. And you can get a king's ransom for that number 1 overall pick. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus held their press conference the other day, their end-of-the-year press conference. And Ryan Poles was asked the question if Justin Fields did enough to prove he is the QB of the future for the Bears. Ryan Poles responded, yeah. Now, a lot of people put a lot of stock into that on Twitter and such. They wanted to say that this was polls affirming that Fields will be the QB going forward. But if you listen to that whole press conference, Ryan Poles responded yeah to pretty much every question he was asked. I think it's kind of like a nervous tick thing he has, or just something he does when he's asked a question. But he literally responded yeah to every single question he was asked on that press conference on Tuesday. The exact thing he said was, yeah, Justin Fields and I have had some good conversations. So, I don't know. Make of that what you want. I think Ryan Poles did affirm that Justin Fields is the guy going forward. He also said that if he was going to draft a QB, that guy would have to blow him away in interviews and in workouts. But I think Poles is wise for keeping his options open here. You look at a guy like Bryce Young. Some comparisons for Bryce Young. I've heard Drew Brees with more mobility. Now, you cannot miss out on a guy like Drew Brees if you're the Bears. How many years has it been since the Bears landed a top-tier quarterback? They never had one. So you cannot miss out on a guy if you believe in him that much. Now, I think Justin Fields will end up being better than Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. But if the Bears recognize that he is that guy going forward, they have to keep their options open here. And they also have to let other teams know that they are considering that, because that keeps more value in that number 1 overall pick. But I do think Fields is the guy going forward. I think he showed enough this year. The athleticism was off the charts. He showed a lot of toughness to me. Poles was also asked some questions about Chase Claypool. Looking back on that trade, we gave up our second round pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers for Chase Claypool. The production just wasn't there all year. Poles trying to put that on, bad timing, lack of time with the team. He didn't have an off season with the Bears, had to learn the playbook, things like that. But still, Chase Claypool just didn't do enough this year for me. Didn't show enough. He wasn't worth that second round pick. That second round pick is like an extra first rounder now because it's the first pick in the second round. We'll see if he can improve here going into the next year. But I think the Bears still got to add some players in the wide receiver room. They got to add some offensive linemen, defensive linemen. I said in previous episodes that they have to put everything in a defense. Well, now looking at it, that offensive line probably isn't good enough. Ryan Poles, he did point out that Tevin Jenkins played well this year. I'd like to see that because I don't think Tevin Jenkins gets enough respect. He also highlighted Braxton Jones. He highlighted Cole Kmet. He said Cole Kmet did one of the best jobs this year for the Bears. I like that. I think Cole did have a really good season. But with that being said, you still have a lot of positions that you got to hit on. So if you can trade out of that number 1 pick up multiple first, multiple seconds, this team needs a lot of players, and they can find that in the draft. And they have the most spending room in free agency. He's going to have to spend some money. So that's the Bears season wrap-up. Let's get into this Damar Hamlin situation. I think we all have heard about this by now. When the incident happened, I was kind of watching the Bulls game. There was the game where Donovan Mitchell scored 71 points. I flipped over to the Monday Night Football, and I just saw all the coaches in the locker room. I saw the announcers talking about the ambulance coming on the field. My instant reaction, this is probably regrettable on my part, but my instant reaction was the NFL will never recover from this. I thought it was probably a head or neck injury. I thought something really bad had happened, and my instant reaction was that the NFL will never recover from this. That was just my human reaction. I thought the game would never be the same. Then I had to go to social media to find out what actually happened, and saw the hit to Damar's chest there, and find out that it was actually a heart attack that he happened. Freak injury. There's been other situations like this in the NFL. Ryan Shazier, where he became paralyzed, but you've never seen this before, where a guy was hit in the chest and had a heart attack on the field. Freak accident, according to all the doctors. His heartbeat, just the rhythm of his heartbeat and getting hit like that can cause your heart to go out. Hopefully it'll never happen again. Hopefully that was the only time we'll ever see something like that. He did get hit hard pretty in the chest. When you got guys flying 20 miles an hour at each other, the best athletes in the world, things like this are going to happen. Part of my reaction to this, some of the T-shirts and stuff going around in the NFL, some of it comes off a little disingenuous to me, to be honest. I think when this happened, the NFL league office, they looked at this as a PR disaster, and like everything else, they were like, how can we flip this to our benefit? Let's do the T-shirts, let's do the Pray for Damar thing all around the league and show that we're a brotherhood. Came off a little disingenuous to me, to be honest. But you're always going to have, severe injuries in the game of football. That's the game. That's what it is. Everybody that's ever signed up knows that's what it is, but you don't expect to lose your life on the field. So I'm really thankful that Damar Hamlin is doing better. Looks like he's going to be in Buffalo for their playoff game. Thank God that Damar Hamlin is okay. But this kind of transitions into a next topic here. It's the Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe debate. Tensions are flying high over at Undisputed. Undisputed is one of my favorite sports talk shows. And one of the biggest stories surrounding the Damar Hamlin incident was Skip Bayless and a tweet he sent out the night of the incident. The tweet basically said he didn't understand how the NFL was considering postponing the game or canceling the game, and that it was unprecedented and the league has never done this before. Now, I got to preface this with saying that Skip Bayless has been a huge role model for myself. His life story, coming from the bottom, Oklahoma City, his father owned a restaurant, never into sports like that, never believed in Skip. Skip started off as a small-time newspaper writer and worked himself into being one of the highest paid professionals in the sports media business. Although I don't always agree with Skip's take, you can't argue the fact that he's always prepared and always stands on the point that he is making. I know Skip gets a lot of grief out there, whether it be his hot takes, or he never played professional ball, or the way he goes after players on Twitter, but I respect Skip for who he is and what he stands for. So on the day Damar Hamlin got injured, Skip sent out that tweet, and then the next day, Shannon Sharpe skipped his appearance on Undisputed. Everybody assumed it was in protest of Skip's tweet, and the next day on Undisputed, Shannon pretty much confirmed that deal. He said that he was skipping the show because he didn't want to make it about Skip's tweet, and he wanted to make it more about Damar Hamlin. What? You skipped work because you didn't like your colleague's tweet? Regardless of what you think of Skip's tweet, you cannot take a day off work because you disagree with it. You don't always agree with Skip, but like I said, he always going to stand on it, and he always means well. And to make matters worse, Shannon was kind of giving a monologue there the next day, and Skip briefly interrupted him and said, "I'm not taking the tweet down," which I had also admired about Skip Bayless. And Shannon just gave up on it and said, "Okay, let's start the show. I'm done with my monologue." If you watch the show, these guys interrupt each other all the time. It's nothing new. I think Shannon was kind of being a little baby in that situation. I like Shannon Sharpe, but in that situation, I think he's wrong. And you've kind of been seeing tensions brewing between these two over the past few weeks. We saw it a few weeks ago when Skip Bayless kind of told Shannon Sharpe that Tom Brady was better than him. Shannon Sharpe took major offense to that. Kind of said, I'm in the Pro Bowl. I'm in the Hall of Fame. I got 3 Super Bowls and all this." And this comes down to these guys are two alphas, and they're trying to see right now who's going to win the show. Who's going to be the last man standing? I think Skip Bayless probably wants somebody else on the show. I think Shannon Sharpe probably wants somebody on the show. And we'll see who the last man standing here is, but if I had to guess, it will be Skip Bayless. All right, let's get into a SuckerFree top 10. You guys know I love the top 10s. You love the top 10s. And this is the top 10 Chicago Bulls of all time. Starting at number 10, Artis Gilmore. Now, I was going to go Luol Deng here, but I changed it at the last second. You can't deny Artis Gilmore's numbers here. Late 70s, early 80s, he was drafted by the Bulls after spending some time in the ABA with the Kentucky Colonels. 6-time NBA All-Star. Didn't do a lot with the Bulls as far as playoffs and didn't spend a lot of time here, but he still is one of the best centers in Chicago Bulls history. Number 9, Dennis Rodman. He was a big part of those 3 Bulls championship teams. He won the rebounding title in 3 of those seasons. He would have been higher on this list if not for some of the suspensions and controversies surrounding Dennis Rodman, some of his trips to Las Vegas, suspensions, kicking a camera guy on the sideline. A lot of the antics kind of hurt Dennis Rodman, but still, top 10 Chicago Bull of all time based on his championships. At number 8, Jimmy Butler, Jimmy G. After being drafted at 30th overall, Jimmy turned himself into one of the best Bulls players of all time. During his Bulls tenure, Jimmy was awarded Most Improved Player, 3rd-team All-NBA, won some playoff series, all defensive teams. His tenure with the Bulls was kind of tarnished by some diva behavior as well, blaming young players for losses and telling team management either Fred Hoiberg would go or he would. Also, the last season Jimmy played, a lot of people forget this, but when it was him, D. Wade, and Rajon Rondo, they should have won that last playoff series against the Boston Celtics, but Rajon Rondo broke his hand and the Bulls ended up losing that series. Jimmy Butler comes in at number 8. At number 7, I'm going with an underrated player here, Jerry Sloan. Jerry Sloan was part of one of the best backcourts, the best backcourt duo in Chicago Bulls history. 4-time NBA All-Star, 2-time All-Star, 4-time NBA First Team, 2-time All-Star. During the 1970s, he won over 50 games 5 years straight. But those Bulls teams in the 70s lost to some of the better teams like the Celtics, Warriors, and Lakers. Those guys just had big guys that the Bulls couldn't compete with. But still, some of the best Bulls teams in team history. Number 7, Jerry Sloan. At number 6, switching something around here, I'm going with Bob Love. After bouncing around different leagues, Love finally found an NBA home in the early 1970s with the Chicago Bulls. 3-time NBA All-Star, 2-time All-NBA, 3-time All-NBA defensive team. He's been a great ambassador for the Chicago Bulls in his post-playing career. You always see him at games, talking to kids. I actually saw Bob Love at a basketball camp when I was younger at Boylan. Really good guy, really good player. At number 6, Bob Love. At number 5, Norm Van Leer, Norm the Storm, another NBA great, 3-time NBA All-Star, 1-time All-NBA, 2-time NBA defensive first team. He was part of that backcourt with Jerry Sloan there in the mid-70s. Was the first really good Bulls team. Played with class. This guy was an ultimate class guy. Another guy I saw at a basketball camp when I was younger, and he was all about class. You know, he said the guys in today's game, all they do is knock you down and then stand over you and talk shit. He's like, what happened to guys, helping people up and being a good sportsman? I like Norm Van Leer at number 5. At number 4, Joakim Noah, 2-time NBA All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year, 1-time NBA first team, was a big part of those Bulls teams in the 2010s that started winning some playoff series and really showed something after the Michael Jordan years in those early 2000s when the Bulls sucked. Joakim Noah, ultimate hustle guy, didn't have all the skills, but he put everything out there every night and won some defensive player of the years and won some playoff series for the Chicago Bulls. At number 3, I'm going with Scottie Pippen, 6-time NBA All-Star, 7-time NBA All-Star, 6-time NBA champion, 3-time NBA first team, 8-time NBA defensive first team. Just based on numbers and accolades, Scottie Pippen is probably the second best Bulls player of all time. Ultimate winner, supreme athlete who developed his skills over the years. He took that bad contract with the Bulls, kind of rubbed him the wrong way. In his post-playing career, some of the stuff he said has kind of pissed me off about Jordan and stuff like that. I think Scottie's a little bit salty, but you can't deny the impact this guy had on this team, and we wouldn't have 6 NBA titles if not for Scottie Pippen. At number 2, I'm going with Houdini himself, Derrick Rose. Born and raised in Chicago, Derrick had the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he did nothing but deliver. Houdini lived up to every bit of hype around him. Some of the most breathtaking moments as a Bulls fan as I can remember. Being at a lot of those games, watching those games when I was coming into my own as a basketball player in high school and college. Super, super inspirational. One of the biggest inspirations to me. He never got too high, never got too low. Ultimate humble player. I think a lot of people remember that All-Star game, that first All-Star game when all the players came out, dancing, LeBron, Carmelo, they were all doing their thing, and Derrick Rose just stood there with a straight face. Like, he wasn't about that. He was about winning. He was about playing the game of basketball. Like I said, absolutely breathtaking some of the things he did on the court. Refused to lose. Dominated everybody. Only MVP for the Bulls other than Michael Jordan. 3-time NBA All-Star. 1-time NBA first team. He was the leader of those Bulls team, which is the best team since the 90s. Unfortunately, we all know his Bulls career got cut too short by injuries, but regardless, he is the second best Chicago Bull of all time. And at number 1, L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. Just kidding.
It's a joke.
At number 1, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. We all knew it was coming. The 6-time NBA champion. He was the leader of all those teams. 6-time Finals MVP. 5-time NBA MVP. 14-time All-Star. 10-time NBA first team. On and on and on the accolades go. The greatest player to ever play the game, and thank God it was with the Chicago Bulls. Without Mike, I don't know if the Bulls ever win an NBA title. Refused to lose. He had the God-given gifts, that was undeniable, but it was what came from within his own head, his own brain, that gave him that work ethic and dog mentality that was unmatched. His aura and his mystique is unmatched to this day. People still talk about him 30 years after retirement. Kids still know who he is. Kids still wear his shoes. He's one of the few sports stars whose name and likeness has become legend among sports fans and children everywhere. You know, you got Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan is up there with those guys. He let everybody else be the judge of who was the best player of all time. He never had to say he was the best player of all time. You just know who it is, unlike other people. Michael Jordan is the greatest Bull of all time and will always be the greatest Bull of all time. So that's going to wrap up the SuckerFree Top 10. Some honorable mentions. Zach LaVine. Zach in his young career. You know, let's see if he can take the next step. I've been critical of Zach LaVine, but he still is one of the better Bulls of all time. Luol Deng, Horace Grant. Those are some honorable mentions. All right, let's get into some shit that pisses me off.
I hate this fucking shit.
NBA officiating. The NBA officials are hurting the game of basketball, specifically the foul calls. Officials call the game way too closely in today's game, especially on the perimeter. We see it every game. You know, certain guys like Trae Young, Luka Doncic. We saw it the other night with Donovan Mitchell when he had that 71-point game. People don't know a lot of those points were at the free throw line. I think he shot over 25 free throws that game. They call the game way too close. Even our own DeMar DeRozan does it all the time. All you have to do is master the act of acting like you got fouled, whether it's throwing your head back or yelling or falling over, and the NBA refs are going to call it every time. It's hurting the game. Scoring is up at an all-time level when it shouldn't be. They're hurting the defenders. It's not fun to watch a star player shoot 25 free throws a game. That's not what the game's about. They need to change something here. Stop calling it so closely. Get rid of some of these rip-through fouls. You know, shooting the three, getting fouled, stuff like that. James Harden kind of mastered it there a few years ago. He's kind of lost favor with some of these NBA officials, and now some of these other guys have moved in, like Trae Young and Luka Doncic. They got to clean this up. It's hurting the NBA game. NBA officiating, that is some shit that pisses me off. All right, let's talk about some Illinois sports here. Illinois football lost the ReliaQuest Bowl to cap off a good but disappointing season. Like all season, Illinois defense played really good that game, but the offense failed to keep them in the game, failed to win that game. They only put up 10 points. Tommy DeVito had a pretty good season, but it was kind of like all season again. Failure to put up points when they needed it. He kind of had a slow game against Mississippi State. This year will go down as a what could have been year for me. He had some big wins, Iowa and Wisconsin, but had some really disappointing losses. Michigan State, Purdue. They could have been in those NCAA playoffs if they would have capped off the season there at the end of the Big Ten, but didn't work out, and Illinois lost the ReliaQuest Bowl. So coming into next season, they got some recruits coming in. They got some transfers coming in. They're going to lose Tommy DeVito. He wasn't granted that last year of eligibility. And Illinois picked up their QB of the future in the transfer portal. They signed Ole Miss quarterback Luke Altmaier, former four-star recruit out of high school, is a Mississippi guy. He showed flashes with Ole Miss. Didn't get too much playing time, though. He got beat out by some other good players there. But he should be the Illini starter going forward. Like I said, former four-star recruit. This guy is pretty good, has a lot of talent, has a really good arm. Hopefully he can do some good things for the Illini. They also signed a big-name receiver out of Chicago, Malik Elzy, another four-star recruit out of Chicago Simeon, 6'3", 200 pounds. This guy is a beast. Played against some weak competition there in Chicago, but this guy is good. He is a monster. One of the best pickups Illinois has had in a while. They've failed to recruit good in Chicagoland area in the past, but they're starting to pick up there, and they pick up Malik Elzy out of Simeon. Illinois basketball. After struggling to start the Big Ten season, they went 0-3, had a bad loss to Northwestern. They picked up some games here the past couple weeks. They beat the Wisconsin Badgers. They were ranked 14 at the time, and they beat Nebraska on Tuesday. You got to be patient with this team. This team is young, a lot of transfers, a lot of freshmen are playing right now. Be patient. I think this team will be fine going forward. They took a big loss for their program, though. They lost Sky Clark, the five-star recruit. He's taken some leave away from the game. You know, he hasn't really said what this is about. He said it's a family matter, but I think a lot of people kind of already knew that Sky Clark wasn't going to be there for all 4 years. This is a guy that was recruited by Kentucky and some other big-name teams. So Illinois ends up losing Sky Clark, and I don't think he'll be coming back. All right, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls and what's going on this year with them.
This is a SuckerFree Sports Talk production. Bulls Talk.
They are playing much better basketball of late. They had won 3 games in a row. They had that winning streak snapped the other night against the Celtics. DeMar DeRozan left that game with a quad injury. It's a quad strain. Hopefully he isn't going to be out too long, but I am hearing he's going to be out in tonight's game against the Washington Wizards. He's in street clothes right now in the shoot-around. Hopefully it's only, a week or so before DeMar gets back because we need him. He is our horse. Can't deny that. But this team has been passing the eye test of late. Even in losses, this team has been playing much better basketball. They're passing the ball, rotating on defense, making open shots. Guys are playing their roles. Guys like Patrick Williams and Kobe White, they have been playing much better of late and helping this team win games. And then after a rough start to the season, Zach LaVine has been looking like the all-star, which he is. I give Zach LaVine a lot of grief, but he has been playing a lot better lately, a lot of bounce in his step. He's making his threes. He's making his layups, which he had a problem with at the start of the season. Really good to see from Zach LaVine. But some things that this team is still struggling with. Defensive rebounding has been atrocious. The Bulls continue to give up way too many defensive rebounds. We saw it the other night against the Celtics. Celtics had, too many possessions where they're getting 3, 4, 5 shots. It's inexcusable. Guys on the perimeter got to go get the ball, and guys on the inside got to box out. Alex Caruso does a pretty good job of it, but other guys like Pat Williams and Zach LaVine, they got to come over the top and get those loose balls and get those rebounds. And then the Bulls, finishing games, they are 7-16 in clutch games this season, ranking 24th in the NBA. They got to find a way to close out these games. And it starts with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. They are the best players. They got to find a way to close out games. They're also relying too much on jump shots. They got to get better at driving the ball and finishing around the hoop. Scoring off the bench. If I was Bulls management, I would be looking at guys to trade for this year, whether that's Jordan Clarkson, possibly bringing Derrick Rose back into the mix here. Derrick was a really good scorer the last few years for the Knicks and the Pistons. He kind of lost the role there for the New York Knicks. Maybe you can bring him here and he can be a scorer off the bench. The guys coming off the bench right now, Kobe White, Goran Dragic, they're good players, but they're not providing the scoring that the Bulls need. Schedule gets a little bit easier here coming up for the Bulls. Like I said, they'll play the Washington Wizards tonight. Hopefully the Bulls can take care of that game with the team that they're competing with for seeding in the Eastern Conference. All right, let's get into some NFL playoffs here. The NFL playoffs will start this weekend, starting on Saturday. We have the 49ers as 9.5-point favorites against the Seattle Seahawks. Brock Purdy is going to start these playoffs off for the 49ers as the starting QB. We'll see if he can carry some of this momentum into the playoffs. He's played well, but the playoffs are a different animal. I think 9.5 points is too high here for the 49ers, but I still think they win this game. Too much talent all around. And I think Seattle was lucky to get in the playoffs, but I think they cover the spread here. The next game we got, the LA Chargers are favored by 2 points in Jacksonville on Saturday night. I've been waiting for this Chargers defense to step it up all year, but they've been disappointing. However, this Jacksonville team is not that good to me. They're still a little bit too young. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have the experience. They shouldn't even be in the playoffs. The Titans gave that game away the other night. But Mike Vrabel had some bad calls there at the end. Should have just ran the ball out. But I think Justin Herbert wins this game. I think he's too talented, and I think the LA Chargers cover the spread and win by 3 points. On Sunday, we got the Buffalo Bills favored by 9 points at home against the Miami Dolphins. We saw the Dolphins beat the Bills earlier this year in Miami, but Buffalo is a different animal at home. And also, I thought Tua Tagovailoa was going to actually play in this game, but it comes out that he is not cleared after those concussion problems. Unfortunate. I really feel bad for Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know if he'll ever play in the NFL again. And I think that the Buffalo Bills dominate this game and win by 10+ points. Also on Sunday, the Minnesota Vikings are favored by 3 against the New York Giants at home. The Giants are coming off a loss to the Eagles, but they didn't play any of their starters, or most of their starters. Daniel Jones sat out. A lot of their other defensive players sat out. This is an upset game for me here. I think that Brian Daboll is that good of a coach. I think he wins this game by a score of 21-17 and knocks the Minnesota Vikings out of the playoffs. Another game on Sunday, the Cincinnati Bengals are favored by 7 points against the Ravens. This game is clear-cut to me. Lamar Jackson doesn't look like he's going to play. A lot of people are saying, well, he's sitting out because of his contract situation. I don't know. I think Lamar Jackson's a competitor. I don't think he would do that. So I think the Ravens starting Tyler Huntley. Tyler Huntley hasn't looked that good this week. Bengals are the hottest team in the league. I am riding hot with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think they win this game by a large margin. And then the rare Monday night playoff game, Dallas is favored by 2.5 in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. I'm done with the Buccaneers. I bet on them all year, and they did nothing but disappoint. Tom Brady and those guys, Tom's playing good, but that surrounding cast, that run game, hasn't gotten anything going this year. I actually like Dallas, even though they've been struggling as of late. They lost their last game against the Washington Commanders, but I still think Dallas wins this game by 3. We'll see if Tom Brady can prove me wrong. Side note here, the Buffalo Bills, they are my favorite to win the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be them or Kansas City, whoever wins that AFC Conference Championship game. And if the Buffalo Bills win that game, mark my words, on this channel after the Bills win that game, I will do a Buffalo Bills Mafia table slam on this table right here. Mark my words. Another side note, Roquan Smith signed a 5-year, $100 million contract with the Ravens. Guy made All-Pro this year. Yeah, he's on a better team. I don't think he would have made All-Pro with the Bears because the Bears were that bad. But still, I don't know about this trade. I don't know if this is a good trade long-term for the Bears. They had the money to sign Roquan, and Roquan's proven himself to be one of the most dominant defensive players in the league with the Ravens. We could have really used him going forward, and to get only a second-round pick, I think that's a little light. So Roquan ends up getting the money he wanted with the Ravens. And with that, that's going to wrap it up here for SuckerFree Sports Talk. Like always, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe to my channel. And remember, if you're gonna talk sports, always keep it sucker-free.